Reversed World S2. Margaret hears the sounds of birds as she yawned awake. She sat up and rubbed her eyes to see the bars of her crib. Oh no! She cried, it wasn't a dream. She quickly stood up in her crib as she unzipped her pajama and stripped it off. She threw it out of the crib as she started to grab at the tabs of the diaper when the smell hit her. Oh please no, she felt the back of her diaper as the poop mush against her butt. She sniffed as she started going red with embarrassment. Then her little girl Sarah, who should be in diapers and not her, walked in the nursery and gagged at the smell. Whoa, guess you did a big boom boom, she teased as she unlocked the crib. Margaret tried to run out but she was grabbed and dragged towards the small change table. She witnessed her diaper removed, her ass being wiped and a new diaper placed on her as Sarah threw her messy diaper in a big pail along with other messy diapers. There we go, said Sarah as she sat her up. Margaret just crossed her arms and pouted. What's wrong? Asked Sarah, are you hungry? Margaret shook her head. Sarah then grabbed one of the toys and shook it in front of her. Look mummy. Mr. Teddy wants to play. She playfully shook the teddy in front of her, making her face go beet red. How humiliating. How can this happen to me? She thought. Just then the doorbell rang. Sarah dropped the teddy to get the door, with Margaret quickly following behind. Sarah opened the door. Grandpa. Thank goodness you're here, she hugged her grandpa, Margaret's father Joe, as Margaret waddled in. Daddy, she said, but her father looks normal. Joe noticed her and exclaimed with joy as he lifted her in the air, how is my princess doing? Horrible, said Sarah. Whenever she gets the chance she either fill up her diaper or get rid of the diaper completely. Well, you know adults at that age, said Joe as he carried Margaret to the couch. As soon as she's 50 her maturity should come back gracefully. Margaret whimpered. Sarah checked her watch and got up. Well, I gotta get to work, can you drop her off at daycare? She asked. Of course, said Joe, so Sarah hugged and gave Margaret a kiss on the cheek. Then she left the house. Well Maggie, said Joe, we should get you dressed, don't want the other men to gawk at your boobies, he chuckled as he carried Margaret to the nursery. Margaret was sat on the crib as Joe go through her closet. Daddy please. She said, you gotta help me, I think something happened last night, please tell me you don't actually see me like this. But Joe grabbed out a pink romper suit and started dressing Margaret in it. She whimpered and sobbed, doesn't anyone understand me? Do I sound like a baby to them? She was then carried out of the nursery, out of the house and been secured tightly in a big car seat in Joe's car. Okay sweetie, Daddy's going to drop you to daycare, so try not to make such a fuss, he pinched her cheek as he got in the driver's seat and drove the car away. Margaret looked out the window at her surroundings. She spots a couple of children acting like young adults, gawking and laughing at a teenage girl wearing preschool clothes and being led by her 10-year-old brother, who looks like someone who is in senior year. She then looked in another car when an adult married couple were together in car seats crying like babies while their children were driving. One was talking on the phone while the other was yelling at the other drivers. She spots a couple of young adults playing in the park, wearing toddler outfits and running around while an adult woman was being fed by her toddler son. Margaret tried to process this in her head. How can this happen? Wasn't the black box? She remembered the black box being weird and relishing a bright light, of course. If I can find that stupid thing I can reverse this. She noticed that they stop in front of a building. Margaret was lifted out of the car as she looks at the big daycare. Once inside she spots more adults in baby clothes playing in a big playroom. Oh my God! Is this what we are reduced to? Joe was talking at the reception while Margaret stood in the big waiting room. Then he grabbed her hand and led her to the playroom. Now Maggie, try not to cause a fuss, and remember no bang bang, he cooed as he hugged her and left the room, leaving Margaret surrounded by adult babies. Bang bang. Margaret sat in the corner of the playroom banging on some blocks with a toy hammer. She adjusted her diaper a little too as it feels weird wearing one. So this must be what it feels like when I was a real baby, she thought. Still can't see why babies enjoy this stuff. She then spots someone across the room. Margaret got up and waddled towards the blonde girl in a pink t-shirt and plastic panties. Cindy. She gasped as her co-worker Cindy looked up from her drawing and gave her a big goofy smile. Maggie. Hi, how are you? She patted on the stop next to her. Come play with me. Margaret sat next to her as Cindy continued to draw. Look, I made a pony, she beamed as she showed a bad drawing of a pony. Wow, so you are as dumb as you are blonde, teased Margaret. Hey, guess what? Cindy said, then she whispered in Margaret's ear, me and Tommy did bang bang last night. Margaret frowned. Bang bang? She asked. Yeah, silly, she said, you know when a man puts his willy in me and we do bang. She giggled. It's really naughty, but it's where our babies come from. So we can still do sex. Now that is something good at least, but isn't it bad? Asked Margaret. Nah. She said, it's just some fun. Giggles. See, I invite him over for a play date and his mummy said yes, so there we are in my playpen when we got naked and bang in the playpen. Without protection. Protection? From what? She giggles. Margaret sighed. Guess there's different rules. Then a guy wearing a sailor suit came over with a perverted face as he giggles. Booby police, he said, have to see your boobies. Margaret scoffed and about to tell him to buzz off when Cindy pulled her shirt over her head. Margaret stared in shock as Cindy started giggling like an idiot as the nasty man started drooling. He then turned towards Margaret. Get lost, as she said. The guy started to cry as he waddled away. Cindy gasped as she whispered, was that a bad word? Margaret nodded, which Cindy giggled. They spend more time drawing in books when the daycare workers, who are children aged 10 to 12, started checking their diapers. Margaret of course feels violated as a child shoved his hand down her bum when a young girl came over holding the hand of the sailor guy. Okay, which one of you dumb adults swore? She said huffingly. Cindy quickly pointed at Margaret. Maggie said a bad word. Margaret felt betrayed. You bitch. She yelled, but the girl grabbed her ear and dragged her away. Margaret yelled in agony as the girl sat down and threw her over her knees. Oh, please tell me she's not going to. The buttons under her romper were unbuttoned as they were opened over her back. The next thing she felt was a hard slap on her butt. Ow! She cried out as the girl continued to slap her butt cheeks. You are too old for words like that, she said with each slap to her butt cheek. Margaret cried out in pain as the girl spanked her bottom so hard. She tried to beg, but it continues, all she could do was cry.